Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this video is titled The Convoluted and Devious Tale of the F-86 at the Entrance to the Iowa City, Iowa Airport. And the reason this tale is convoluted and devious will become apparent in just a few slides. Uh, this is a picture we took. That blue arrow there, that's me on the end there, this really young 22-year-old. And that's a few members of Arnold Air Society and Angel Flight up there on the wing after we had restored this aircraft for a publicity shot. Now, the F-86 came from the Iowa Air National Guard, and this is roughly what it looked like. It was flown into Iowa City, Iowa in 1963 by a L Westfall. I heard the airplane flying over, but being 13 and the airport being 5 miles away, by the time I could convince my folks to take me to the airport, it had already parked on the ramp and the pilot had departed. Well, less than 9 years later, I was in Air Force ROTC and I was awarded the Bernard L Westfall Award because, unfortunately for Bernie, he was flying a T-33 near Cuba, and it disintegrated in a mid-air event, and he was killed. So since he was a member of our detachment, our ROTC detachment previously, they made a award in his honor. Now, they took the jet shortly after 1963, and they mounted it on a 3 posts here near the entrance of the airport. But 9 years had not been well to it. The aircraft deteriorated. Somebody had taken a brick and smashed the canopy. We knew it was a brick because the brick was in the bottom of the canopy. And the aircraft was basically in a sorry state. Now, Major Corder was our flight advisor for Arnold Air Society, which I was a member of, and also for Angel Flight. And he did some research and found out that this jet actually had been given by the Air Force to the Arnold Air Society at our detachment, ROTC detachment in Iowa City. It was one of the few, possibly the only jet aircraft that was given by the Air Force to an Arnold Air Society detachment. Well, our detachment, Arnold Air Society detachment, decided we need to do something about this because it was a bit of a disgrace. So I was kind of appointed de facto to take on this effort. Um, that's me there standing at the wingtip. That's my 1973 Malibu. Actually, it was my wife's, and I gained it through marriage a year earlier. And I still wish I had that car. It's beautiful. I see that type of car at auto shows. But anyway, I digress. So we've got this jet, and we needed to clean it up. Well, I was a member of the Experimental Aircraft Association. I talked to the guys about, well, this is a big project, guys. How do I make this thing look nice? So I got a lot of information from them. I also got the necessary supplies, which I, for quite a while, kept in the trunk of my car there, polishing materials. And this is before battery-powered tools of any sort. So I was also a member of a citizens band group that was kind of a disaster preparedness group. And they had a generator, and they loaned me the generator to use. So here we are. Now, what do we do with this? We've got these various markings, and I thought, well, the Thunderbirds are cool. That's why I wanted to go in the Air Force, because I saw them fly. And I thought, well, I'll kind of just make it look like a Thunderbird. Cover up the parts that were painted in paint, and the parts that were metal, we would polish. Now, the interesting thing about it is this paint scheme, which I just came up with, didn't really get it approved by anybody, didn't ask anybody's approval, and just laid it out, and we did it. And it has remained the paint scheme for over 50 years, which I think is rather funny when you think about it. The credit for this restoration is given to Arnold Air Society and Angel Flight as appropriate, and it's credited with 25 members of each. And every once in a while, we had a pretty good work detail, but as within most jobs, it was kind of a dedicated few that did most of the work. Major Corder is kind of in the center there. You can't see him. He acquired an F-86 Canopy and we put it on the aircraft, and he brought a bicycle type of lock and locked it in place so nobody could steal the canopy. Unfortunately, it didn't last more than a few years when somebody decided to break it. They have made a kind of crude plastic canopy to replace it that has amazingly lasted probably 45 years. This is a picture of us working on it, polishing it up. That was kind of the normal contingent of people we had working on it at any time. They said to spend about 100 hours on it. 100 hours, man hours total. I think it was probably a lot more than that. There's a friend of mine from the detachment, Russ. He's up on the nose. Of course, we're in our 70s now. This is rather precarious, and it's even scary to think of some of the positions we attained on this aircraft to do the work. Something I'd be a little less excited about doing now. Now, here's another picture of us working on the aircraft. And the gentleman coming close to me there, Russ, the guy who was previously working on the nose, Russ and I were both in electrical engineering, and we were friends who kept in contact for a long time. Russ went to pilot training in the Air Force like I did and was assigned to KC-135, but he ended up doing a lot of SPO work on missiles later on and had quite a career doing that. Under the nose there is Bob. Bob's a friend of mine that I've known since we were 4 years old. We grew up essentially across the street from each other in Iowa City, and we went to different high schools, but we went to the same University of Iowa. We were in the same ROTC detachment. Actually, we were both cadet colonels. He was in charge of the Air Force detachment as a cadet, and I was the deputy corps commander over both the Army and the Air Force. We were both cadet colonels, which is the highest rank we achieved in the Air Force, and that was as cadets, because we both went to pilot training at Vance Air Force Base, and we were in the same class. So talk about coincidences. Bob was a very strong guy, but he was big. And at the time, the Air Force had what they called a fat boy program. Bob was solid muscle. But if you took his height and his weight, he was overweight. He was fat. Well, the sergeants knew this wasn't true. Bob and I, we would run the mile and a half, and Bob would help me pace. And I'd done quite a bit of running before that in prep, so we did okay. But when it came to the weigh-in, I would put my hand down with my cupped hand, and he would come and put his fist in it, and then he would step on the scale, and I know this is devious, but I would lift up just enough till he made the weight standard. Of course, you know, when you're doing something like this, it's bouncing around a little bit, and the sergeant there was at UPT. He was sitting there and he was trying to record the weight, although it was bouncing around. He knew what we were doing, but he also knew that Bob was not overweight. So Bob got a good weight. He let it pass. We graduated from Vance, Bob and I, and he went off to C-130s and actually got an air medal because he was involved in the evacuation of Saigon. An F-5 takes off in front of him. Bob takes off in the C-130, and the F-5 determines he's going to come around and shoot down a C-130. Well, Bob does some very aggressive air maneuvering. Of course, the C-130 has a nice straight wing and a lot of power, and the F-5 is a fast aircraft, and if you can kind of get a glimpse of him coming, you can turn and defeat him, and eventually the F-5 got tired. I think Bob got a few holes in his airplane, but the F-5 got tired and went away. Well, I went out to the training command as a plowback T-37 IP. Then I went out to Edwards as a chase pilot. We both ended up getting out of the Air Force. Bob went to Air Florida, and after the accident, they kind of fell apart. And I went to United Airlines and had a very good career. All right, here's the picture again. The next slide, I'll have a picture that was in the paper, not quite as beautiful as this picture, but again, there's me next to the arrow there. Major Quarter is two people over from me, and then we had various people from, again, Arnold Air Society and Angel Flight up there on the wing. And we got a write-up in the newspaper talking about it, and the aircraft was dedicated to Iowa POWs and MIAs. In October of '72, we had a ceremony. We had various noted people there. We had the mayor of the city. We had the high school band play the national anthem, and it was a rather nice presentation dedicating the airplane to the MIA and POW war veterans. There's another picture of the presentation. These all occurred in the Iowa City Press Citizen. All right, so here's the airplane. It's on display. Notice how small the trees are there, and not too bad. Well, this is 1972 time frame, and I'm out at Edwards Air Force Base as a chase pilot, and in 1977, I happened to come home to visit my folks. We're talking just 5 years later. So it's 1978. I come home from Edwards Air Force Base in California to visit my folks, and we're driving by a salvage yard, actually in Coralville, Iowa. And it was dark, but there was enough lighting that I could see our F-86 sitting on a flatbed truck with the wings cut off, and I was absolutely aghast. And I go, what's going on here? Well, I found out, I did some quick research, and I found out that somebody in the Iowa City Council had decided that this was too militaristic of an item to have at the airport, and they were going to take it down without really asking anybody's permission. They just decided, we don't like this, we're taking it down. Well, in this whole process, the aircraft, like I mentioned, had been dedicated to the POW and MIA war veterans. And there was actually a plaque on it dedicating this aircraft to those people. And I had put that plaque up there. And this is, again, in the days before power tools that, battery operated. And I'm up there with a little hand operated drill drilling into the aircraft to mount this. Well, funny thing, I saw the aircraft on the flatbed trailer and this was gone. I think somebody must have felt just a little guilty about defacing a war memorial and took the plaque off. We never know really what happened to it. But what did happen was the VFW got involved and they were obviously irate. I gave them a lot of history on the aircraft, what it had done in that, and they were able to get it restored. It was set back up on the mountings there, and of course it was later refurbished. And you notice that all reference, of course, to the plaque is gone. And you notice how much bigger the trees were. Actually, the evergreens grew very tall. They cut them down, and then they put these, I guess you'd call them deciduous trees in its place. But over the years, and this aircraft has been exposed to a little bit over 50 years, still my paint scheme of all funny things, but it's been exposed there. And of course, you can see the canopy. It's not your typical F-86 canopy, but the polish, of course, is dulled. You have to really keep these things up, and the paint is dulled. Well, not too many years ago, the city decided, this looks kind of bad. We're going to do something about it. So they hired a contractor who I'm sure they paid a lot more than us because they didn't pay us anything, the Arnold Air Society and Angel Flight, to do this. And I was able to get fair amount of the materials donated. We had a POW bracelet campaign. We got some money because I had to buy certain of the compounds in that. But it really cost us very little, and I'm sure these guys charged a lot more, but they repainted it. Well, once again, time goes on, and the paint deteriorates. And this picture I took actually just a short while ago in 2023 here when I was there visiting my niece. And you can see that the trees have grown a lot, and the aircraft is once again deteriorating. The unfortunate thing is that the ROTC detachment at Iowa City, a while after I was there, it closed down. It was brought back, but now I understand that there are no flight programs like I was in, flight introductory program at any of the ROTC detachments. They send them directly to the Air Force, like Advance and things like that, to start out in the T6. So we didn't have the pilot contingency, or don't have the pilot contingency now. And as far as I understand, I talked to a friend of mine. He saw some of my YouTube videos and said, I know that guy. And we actually made contact after 50 some years. And he was telling me some of the stories that the Arnold Air Detachment no longer exists at this detachment, at this ROTC detachment. So unfortunately, there's nobody really to take it on. It would be great if the Air Force ROTC detachment did take this on as a restoration, but that's up to them. Anyway, that is the history, sordid history in some respects, of the F-86 sets at the entrance to the Iowa City Airport. Thanks for watching.